So hey everybody, welcome back to a brand new season of Japan Business Time.
Yes.
With
Rochelle Kopp.
This is the after work edition of Japan Business Time. And I think in keeping with the theme, we're going to talk about all the stuff we usually talk about.
Right.
But we'll try to keep with the after work theme. I mean, we are here enjoying some nice drinks at the...
Exactly. Cheers. Or kanpai.
Kanpai. So we are here in the Michelin-starred YouTube ramen restaurant.
Kanpai.
And we're going to be talking for today, the first episode of this new season of Japan Business Time. The topic is from Jack Semura and Robert Dennis Ryan. And it's the general discussion about Nommunication and Japanese drinking culture.
Right. Do you have to do it? Do you not have to do it? What's the deal?
That's right. So hang around. You're not going to want to miss it. So Rochelle, great to have you back for a new season, of course. Great to see you back in Japan again.
Thanks.
So everyone's got this idea that with Japan, you basically have to go out drinking until your liver shuts down pretty much. And
right.
There is this image of this over-the-top Nommunication, which is based on, these kind of, this image of the hard-working, hard-drinking salaryman. And a lot of people are genuinely concerned. I think we're in a slightly gentler age at the moment, aren't we? That people don't necessarily always want to do that anymore.
Right.
So what is the deal with this? If you want to go and work for a Japanese company, do you have to basically become a complete alcoholic? I mean, what is the deal?
The answer is no, you don't.
That's a relief. Itadakimasu.
Yes. Dozo.
I'm not going to miss this. This is the best ramen restaurant in the entire
world.
That's right.
Yes.
I'll promise you so.
Yes.
So do you have to drink? I mean,
You don't have to drink, but what you do have to do is you have to be there. You have to show up and you have to spend time with people.
Yes.
And you don't have to consume any alcohol. You can just have tea or juice or water, and that's totally fine. Mm. But the key thing is that you have to show up. Mm. And you need to spend time together. That's the bonding. And for Japanese, they're going to really let their hair down, and you're going to get to know them a lot better if you spend time with them outside of work.
There is a lot of value attached just to that spending time together thing.
Right. People really care about that.
Yeah.
And you'll really be able to have a depth of conversation that's different than in the office. Mm. Now, sometimes there's a lot of small talk involved too, but you just kind of get at things from a different angle.
Yeah, there is definitely, if you're going to find out that so-and-so likes fishing or so-and-so's kids just did this or that, you're probably likely to hear that first in that sort of a setting outside of the office. People feel like we talked about this in the last season about compartmentalization. Right. Setting up boundaries.
Right, so you can kind of get into another area.
Yeah, it's kind of a gray, so it is a gray zone when you're out drinking. There's no question it's got a work purpose sort of behind it. But
right, and you're still with work people, but people do kind of just open up a little bit more.
Yeah, but there is this stereotype, and I feel like it was more true when I first arrived in Japan, that there was a thing, you had to go out, you had to drink. People would collapse at the company. People would literally be on the floor at the company drinking things.
Well, there's still a meme on Twitter and Facebook of pictures of drunk Japanese salarymen passed out on the sidewalk. There are enough of those that happen that people can have a series of those, right? Yeah. So it's not like it doesn't happen, but what I've found, from my own experience, a few years ago, I decided when I come on business trips to Japan, I don't want to drink because it just makes the jet lag worse, and I'm tired enough already. And so I just told everyone I don't drink. Mm. Not a big deal. And no one is forcing me to do it. And I think sometimes what happens is, and this is a little bit of a difference with the U.S. In the U.S., if someone says, I don't want to drink, no one says anything else at that point. But in Japan, people will say, well, why not? Or come on, won't you just have one? Yeah. And that's such a politically incorrect question in the U.S., but that is okay here. And the thing is, people will give answers that you would never do in the U.S. And in Japan, someone will say, oh, I'm on Dr. Stop.
Yes.
Which,
that's the one that I use.
In the U.S., you would never say, no, my doctor told me I can't drink. That's just like too much information you wouldn't share. Yes. But people in Japan, it's just like no big deal to say that.
In the U.S., it's almost like saying my psychiatrist told me not to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you just would not say that, right? You would not say that.
But I use that. But what I do is I'll say, I want to drink, but I'm on cough medicine at the moment, so I can't take it. I got a bit of a cold, so I just want to take it easy today. But then they notice every time I go out that I'm on.
Oh, cough
I've got a
medicine.
cold.
Yeah, it's a little bit. If you're seeing the same people all the time, that's a little bit harder to do.
It is.
But why can't you just say, "Hey, look, I just really don't like to drink."
Well, this is what's changed though. So when I first arrived, working in Japan in 1999, there was still very much the company going out, drinking, some people on the floor, pick them up, drag them to karaoke, where half of the women, didn't want to go there either because the butchos would put them up to sing their favorite morning musume songs or whatever. And it's kind of funny because when they started making these corporate power harassment and sexual harassment videos, the stereotypical scenario for these videos was always the butcho pressuring the young ladies at karaoke. You can sort of see the horror run through the faces of these guys. Did I sexually harass that person? And so all of a sudden there's a real point in time, about 2003. I feel like all of a sudden, like when there was one person, if one of those office ladies would raise their voice and say, I really don't like karaoke, okay, we're not doing karaoke. The whole thing would
now
stop.
everyone just sort of put a chill on that, huh?
It really,
put a damper on it.
And it really, no, because I'm a karaoke guy. I'm the king of karaoke, by the way. We need to do a whole series on this at some other point.
Just don't make me sick.
This is the thing. In the old days, so you'd come along and you'd sit there politely.
Oh, I would just wait till everyone else is drunk and then sing after that.
Oh yeah. Well, there's that as well. But now it's actually, there's almost like this fear thing. So you only go to karaoke with people who really want to go to karaoke now.
So that cuts down the number quite a bit.
It does. It means I have to find a group of people who are into karaoke, which involves a degree of coming out now as well. People have to reveal themselves as singers. It's cool when you get that together. But the other thing that's really interesting is the similar thing has happened with drinking. There's a stereotype in Japan associated, again, in these training videos that go around of power harassment is forced drinking.
Right.
And this genuinely used to happen.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Young guy, drinking games. This happens in Britain, it happens in New Zealand, but it certainly happened in Japan, there was this thing, even people who didn't want to drink, who couldn't drink, whose bodies, you get a lot of Japanese who can't process alcohol.
They don't have the enzyme.
And they would get forced to by their bosses.
Yeah, so that's definitely gone away.
It's disappeared a lot. It used to be absolutely standard and it's gone. And what's really interesting to me is now I go out and pretty much every corporate nomikai I've been to with all Japanese people apart from me, there's always a number of people who are just having a picture of udon tea.
Yeah.
And no one even questions anymore.
Right, it's not even an issue anymore, exactly.
There would have been a time they would have had to explain themselves. I occasionally run into that. But I can now order a ginger ale first and have a beer later and not get questioned on the ginger ale, which always used to happen. So there's been a softening and a change as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's kind of scary. But I'll tell you, there's another stereotype, which I want to ask you about.
Yes.
This idea that when you're out drinking with the boss, that is the one time you can be completely honest with your boss.
Well, yes and no.
Yes and no.
I would still be very careful about what you say in that situation. There's a traditional Japanese idea that what gets said over drinks is forgotten, and so people would use that as a way to kind of get things off their chest. But, it doesn't completely work.
I have heard stories that go along the line of backing up that idea. Guy punched his boss in the face, and the next day,
Really?
I've heard of to that sort of a point.
Wow.
And somehow the next day the boss thought, well, maybe I was such a mean guy that he wanted to punch me in the face and changed. I've never encountered that. And for me, when I was the junior guy, when I was the most kohai type guy, and the problem is you get a little bit of a gaijin pass for the first couple of months, but once they realize that you are, doing the same as everybody else, and okay, you're here, you asked to be on this project.
Right.
You want to be a kohai, you're a kohai. But the problem is I'd never actually been a real kohai until this job. So the real kohais at the nomikai, yes, you can be, theoretically everyone's now equal, but the kohais still have to keep everyone's glasses full.
Right. That's part of the job, yes.
There is the kanji who will be a designated junior member who will sit nearest the door and will make sure that the orders are being fulfilled and kept up. So there is and they will be very careful with Japanese language. You won't be using casual language to your boss. Even if the conversations are loosening up.
You still have to be careful. There's a certain line that you can't go over, yes.
Yeah, and the problem is every foreigner I know who goes out drinking and who speaks good Japanese, at least early on, switches back into familiar Japanese, usually when they get drunk. I totally did that. And it's something
Doesn't look good.
doesn't look good, and it's funny, and you don't get a pass for that. If you speak Japanese, you don't get the pass for the incorrect use of keigo, and that's a real there's a real risk with that when you add alcohol to that.
Yeah, it's really treacherous. You have to be really careful.
And so after I had a few experiences where I kind of got burned and I kind of did the wrong thing, and I became so stressed out. And as I was feeling the control going from drinking more, and I was suddenly realizing, am I still pouring the glasses enough? Am I using keigo?
Well, that's why for me, I just don't even want to bother to drink. I'd rather have my wits about me.
Well, that is one part of it, and that's why I started making excuses, frankly.
Right.
And it's also why, frankly, and the other thing I did, which I don't recommend, but I started trying to look for ways of not participating all the time in these things.
Well, that
has a penalty.
Yeah, if you're perceived as the person who's not joining in, then you aren't part of the team in the same way.
That is true.
One thing I was going to say about the you can say anything over alcohol that I think people really need to think about, though, is that sometimes Japanese over drinks will confide in you, and you are not expected to bring that up again. And, that was the time where they shared that with you, but you aren't supposed to tell anyone else. You aren't supposed to ask them about it again.
Yeah.
It was their chance to kind of let it out, but you just have to kind of listen to it, and it's not going to be an ongoing topic of conversation. I've had some pretty amazing things get revealed to me in that context, and you just have to be discreet, and that's the rules of it because it was said over drinks. Discretion,
it's so important. Yeah, and the other thing about this is being so important. You hear about this thing how the visitors think they sold something in a business meeting and they didn't, and it wasn't until they went and did a few of these nomikais and what it's really about, and this is linked to this. Japanese still place such a high value on intrinsic trust, on shinrai.
Right.
And the process of opening up and checking how you react to that, are you sympathetic, do you have a story back, exchanging those sort of stories that you might never raise again, but once you've had that connection there, it means that when you're in the office the next day, this is someone who you build up those connections.
Right.
This is someone who I can open up with, and
right. There's something you've had some bonding there at some level.
It's bonding, and no matter how good your presentation is, or your product is, or persuasive your pitch is, you don't get shinrai just off a good presentation, or frankly, even off one nomikai. It often takes a couple.
It takes time. Yeah. And so it's just a process, right?
Yeah.
It's a process of building up people's comfort with who you are and how you behave, and seeing you in a different context is a way to get you to know you better.
Yeah. So don't feel too stressed out about the Nommunication thing. It's kind of a ritual you go through. The pressure it's not the 90s. It's definitely not the 80s.
Yes.
We have it is a gentler time. You don't have to necessarily drink, but at the same time, you should be there.
Show up.
Yeah, you have to show up, and
you have to participate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do what Rochelle says. So look, we're going to be back same time next week.
Yeah.
Most likely wearing the same clothes.
Right.
Eating the similar wonderful ramen that they have at this place. So this is Japan Business Time after work.
Exactly.
See you again next week. Cheers.